Hey there, your backup plan tribe, to another awesome interview. Wait, you guys, beyond the bedside, a hospice nurse's role in what does she do and why does she do certain things? It's going to help you look at the transition between life and afterlife for your loved one. And I'm so incredibly happy to have Amy Hemsley here from Nebraska today to talk to you about how it works when you don't have those family conversations, when you don't have your whole family on board with this transition. Now, we can't speculate when that transition might happen. We don't know. So that's why we talk about on your backup plan, that we talk about why you should have a transition period and why you need to have a family conversation. My eye is running. And I want to talk about what happens when your loved one is in that transition period and what to expect, so that when it comes time when we need to get our family prepared and ourselves, no matter what age you are, that it makes it so much easier and so much calmer and so much better to be able to take the time to look at the present, because you never get that time back. So have a preparation plan ahead of time. I can't stress that enough. But let me introduce myself really quickly. I'm Tina, and I'm not going to wreck your party here. I'm just here as a mom and a real person on a mission to help families and individuals face life's curveballs head on, no matter what instant comes your way. Could be a hurricane, it could be a tornado, it could be a sickness, it could be a stroke or a heart attack. Whatever is the situation, it is life-changing. And that's why at your backup plan, we have a purpose that's crystal clear. We're here to empower you in the face of life's unpredictability. So that being said, I'm going to have a quick commercial and bring on Amy.
In the blink of an eye, life can change dramatically. On our podcast, Talking Taboo with Tina, we delve into these life-altering events with celebrities, authors, and everyday people just like you. You'll also discover your Backup Plan app, a life-organizing tool designed to prepare you for any unexpected circumstance. It's your safety net, taking the sting out of tragedy. Imagine a plan B that ensures your finances are safe, even in the worst-case scenario. But it doesn't end there. Join our vibrant Facebook group for free webinars on backup planning and secure your future today.
And we're back. Let's welcome on Amy. She is an RN, an educator, and a hospice nurse. Welcome, Amy. I'm so grateful that you're here today with us.
Hi, Tina. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I thought, where do we even start with what you have to tell us about all your relatable situations that you've come across in all the times that you've been nursing that can help us understand better on how to be prepared, and if you're not, how to do that through transition. I think a lot of us think that it's just all going to fall into place, but it isn't. And so where did it all start for you, Amy?
Well, how far back do you want me to go? I will start with that I was a graphic designer for about 20 years before I went to nursing school. While I was in nursing school, I really didn't know where I wanted to work. And so I tried lots of things and took advantage of so many opportunities to go and shadow people and just try out different areas of nursing, because it's mind-boggling how many different ways to go there are.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I ended up landing on after I graduated is a little critical access hospital that's about 20 miles from my house. And a critical access hospital just means it's small enough that we got to do everything from birth to death. So I
Oh,
did labor and delivery, I did surgicals, pediatrics, emergency room, skilled nursing, and then just your run-of-the-mill hospital things like pneumonia and those kinds of things. And then I did have several end-of-life hospice patients that were in the hospital. While I was there, I decided I didn't want to do bedside forever, so I got my master's and started teaching at a community college here in Lincoln. And that is where I met Erin Putney. She has become my best friend and my business partner. While we were teaching, COVID happened and kind of destroyed a lot of us.
yeah.
Not only was nursing really hard, but teaching was really hard. And then you combine those two, and nursing and teaching, it was really a challenge. And
Yeah.
for a new teacher, um, it was just really hard for me. And not that I have a hard time with hard jobs, but that was too much. So while let me back up just a second. So while Erin and I were teaching together, she had developed a one-day workshop for our nursing students that helps prepare them for the inevitability of, as a nurse, you are going to encounter death, even if you are not in hospice. It's
Yeah.
just, it goes with the territory. And so her one-day workshop I did with her like 4 or 5 times, and got more comfortable with death than I even was before. And I felt I was fairly comfortable with it. I've grown up going to funerals, having conversations around my kitchen table with my family, and it never was a taboo topic. So I feel very lucky in that way that, I've grown up talking about end of life and death and not really being afraid of it.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot more just being included in this workshop. And then when I knew I wanted to leave teaching, I talked to my next door neighbor, who has become a very good friend of mine because she has worked for a hospice agency here in town. And I had been telling her for a year, if there's ever an opening there for a nurse, I want to know about it. And so there was, and it was good timing. And I worked for them for about 5 months. The environment just wasn't quite right for me, because when you work for an agency, you are going into people's homes, wherever that is,
Yeah.
whether it's
Different.
an actual house or like a senior living facility or nursing home and things like that. And so I stopped doing that and then started working for an inpatient unit in town. And what that means is we're just a little hospice house. We had 6 beds. We got to do everything for them, cooking, cleaning their laundry, in addition to all of their cares, taking care of the patients, but also the families. And that, my friend, has been my jam. It is the perfect environment for me. So not only do I get to do my nursing things with medications and cares, but I get to still educate. I
Mm-hmm.
get to educate families and friends and my other, my coworkers, and I get to learn from them. And it's just a huge collaboration, which I really, really love. So that's how I got into hospice nursing. And then in addition to doing that, Erin and I started a company a couple of years ago called Sips and Wishes. And we educate people on medical interventions that they might be offered, and then how to document that, how to plan for it. So we were just finding as bedside nurses that people don't know what some of these interventions are, such as being on a ventilator or dialysis. They don't know what that is in real life. They see things on TV and in movies, and I'm here to tell you very few of those are very accurate. And so if that's all you know, you don't know what the real side effects are of those things, because with every intervention comes a side effect. And then you get to decide if you want those or not based on your knowledge then. So having those conversations after the education is really, really critical. You talk about your backup plan, and this is planning ahead for something that might not ever happen. You might not ever be
Yeah.
offered a feeding tube, and that is great. But if you are, I want you to know what that is, so you are making educated decisions. And so Aaron and I developed a curriculum to come in, and folks have parties in their house and they can sip on whatever beverage they want, whether that's iced tea and lemonade or whiskey or anything in between. Have some snacks. We come in and educate, talk about medical power of attorney, and talk about how to document. And it's really empowering time to spend with people, and they get to ask whatever questions they have in a safe place. And we're just, like I said, it's just been a couple years, but we're really starting to take off, and it's very exciting to see the positive response that we're getting, that people do want to know about this stuff without knowing that they needed to know about this stuff. It's like we're the
Yeah.
step no one knew you needed, because you don't think about it and you don't talk about it
No.
unless unless you've encountered something in your life before that sort of forced the issue, or unless you have a nurse in your family that's like, no, we're going to sit down and talk about this.
Yeah, exactly. Because they know what
Yes.
it's like behind those closed doors. And I think that's the problem, is a lot of people and families don't know what it's like behind those closed doors. So they don't think they need to be prepared. So what kinds of things did kind of tickle your fancy, so to speak, with regards to people being open to your educating process? Because you're in a small hospital or clinic or whatever you want to call it, I guess, where you're going to be able to have more time with each individual. Whereas when you're in a big hospital, you're just a number, I guess, really.
Right.
What do you think? I mean, that's perfect environment for what you want to do and help.
It is. I'm actually not, I don't work at that hospital anymore. The place I work is just a totally separate little hospice house. But when we do the Sips and Wishes education, it can be wherever. It can be in a family's living room, around their kitchen table. It can be in senior living communities, in their rec rooms. We've had parties in church basements. So really the environment is, the only thing we want with our environment is that it's comfortable.
Yeah.
And like I said, we have our hosts provide some sort of beverage and some sort of little snack. Could be popcorn or could be charcuterie boards.
Yeah.
But we can take the time to talk about everything. A party can last a couple of hours, and that just gives everybody the opportunity to ask all their questions. And we take our time and show equipment and share stories. We as nurses share stories, but the people who come to the parties want to share their stories too. They want to process what they went through,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's uncomfortable because they wonder, did they do the right thing? And so we can talk about what their decisions were, and reassure them that it was the right decision. You did everything you could do at the time, knowing what you did. And if you're thinking that, oh, I should have done something different, well, now you have new information. So if you encounter something new now, you might do something differently. But we do try to remind people that the decisions that I make are my decisions. They're for me, they're for my body. And
Yeah.
if I pick a medical power of attorney, I need to pick someone who's going to do what I want and have that conversation with them about what I want and what I don't want. It's not their decision, it's mine. They're just being my voice. So
Yeah.
picking your medical power of attorney is just really important because they need to understand what your wishes are.
That's right. And I don't think people, I don't know where it comes from. I really don't. I don't know if people just think it's never going to happen because they're Superman, or if they think that it's just in the movies, like it's not going to happen to me or their family. I don't really understand why we don't want to know, like, and I don't know why it's not more educated in all forms at some point in time in our lives. We just stay away from it altogether.
Yeah,
And it's
I
not helping us at the end, right? It's not,
no, it's absolutely not doing anybody any favors. That is for sure. I don't, I'm not sure how it is where you are, but I would say in the United States, we have a culture of hiding that. We hide death. We don't want to talk about it. We don't, Facebook takes down posts all the time of pictures or videos or words that they think are going to make people uncomfortable because that's our culture, is we will
yeah,
hide it. We only want the joyous things out there portrayed in social media. And I'm here to tell you that death is going to come for all of us at some point. And me talking about it with you, I promise, is not going to bring it any faster. I do not have that kind of power. It just, nurses are bad enough about, we have taboo things all the time that we won't say the Q word because that makes things go haywire. But in this case, talking about it does not bring it on. I have seen it empower people and relieve so much anxiety. If we can talk about things, I think a lot of the anxiety and fear comes from not knowing what's going to happen. And so if we can talk
yeah,
about it ahead of time, things might not look exactly like what we talked about, but generally speaking, enough people have died that I can speak to what might happen.
yeah,
And so you can just be prepared for what you might see, what you might hear, what you might smell, what you might feel inside your own body. And when you can have those conversations ahead of time, then it relieves the anxiety. And then when it comes, you're like, oh yeah, I remember talking about this. This is what it is. And it just makes it a lot less scary, I think.
I think so too. And it's kind of like how we prep little kids for fires. We
Yep.
we do the actions of what you're supposed to do and talk about it, so that when it does happen, it's like, oh yeah, that's what I have to do. Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I talk about it on our show all the time. But when I ask the average person on the street, are you prepared with a backup plan? People will say, oh yeah, I've got my will done. And then the story kind of ends. Like they think that's it.
Yeah.
But we're here to tell everybody that's not it, as well as to be more educated in the medical portion so that people can understand what they have to make decisions around.
Right. Yeah.
Because when
I
you
mean,
don't know, right?
yeah, exactly. When you don't know what you don't know. And so, yeah, finding resources to help manage and educate yourself. It's not easy, believe me, to find those resources. When Aaron and I were trying to decide if we were going to do SIPSN, which is I did a lot of research to see, well, how many other companies out there are already doing this. I don't want to compete with them. I
Yeah,
couldn't find any. I couldn't
yeah,
find any. Zero. There are several resources to help have conversations and to facilitate questions and lead you through, different uncomfortable conversations, but no one is doing the medical education like what we are. So unless you have someone in your family, like I said, that, can help you understand what CPR is going to do to a body, you're just flying by the seat of your pants. And doctors, for as amazing and as knowledgeable and as smart as most of them are, they don't learn about death and dying in medical school. Very, very few have any kind of death and dying class or hours in their curriculum to help with something that's going to happen to every single body. Every single one of us is going to die. That's just how it is. I'm sorry to burst anybody's bubble. But knowing that doctors, for the most part, haven't been educated formally in how to have conversations, in how to explain the pathophysiology of what's going to happen, or for even them to say, yeah, you know what, we've done a lot of options here, and I don't know that doing any more of these interventions is going to help you. And so let's change our focus to comfort instead of trying to intervene and have some sort of cure, because a lot of diagnoses are terminal. I mean, life is terminal, right? We're all going to die, but I'm not going to be able to fix your COPD. It's a chronic condition.
Yeah.
And so, like, having doctors not having had this education too is a detriment to patients and families. And so, in come the nurses to help interpret what doctors have said, or to have those uncomfortable conversations. Thankfully, people feel very comfortable with us. We are trustworthy because we are honest and we can be direct, and it's not always what people want to hear, but I think a lot of times people do appreciate when we are upfront with what's probably going to be coming.
I think it's true. I think people want to have someone up front, but I also think that they want to know, well, if we do this, what is going to happen? And if that doesn't work, what if this? I think that's what people want to know, so that they can make, like you said, educated decisions.
Yep, I think so too.
But that being said, I think a lot of times people wonder, why are you not giving any liquid to my parent who's passing? Or, even those slight little things like, why are you not feeding them? Why are you not giving them liquid? Shouldn't they have any? I think that was one of the biggest questions that we've had so far.
And you're talking like hospice when someone is at end of life, right?
Yeah,
yes, that is one of the hardest things I think I have seen for families, is when their loved one goes on hospice, whoever is caring for them, whether it's the hospice agency or if they're an inpatient unit, what we do is let the patient direct what they eat, how much they eat, when they eat. Because as your body is going through the dying process, different organs are starting to change. Your organs are starting to either slow down and turn off in whatever order your body decides, because even though we all have the same guts, we have different disease processes and different
timelines of your
timelines,
body.
all the things. Yes. And so, but if you put food into a stomach that is not going to be able to process that and get it into your small and large intestines, it's going to just sit in your stomach and it's going to be painful. So it's kind of like the opposite of hunger pains. Like when you and I are hungry, it hurts, where our stomach growls and we have that hunger, we can feel low blood sugar. but it's the opposite in a body that is dying. If we put food into it, it hurts. So we let the patient direct, I want, ice cream. Great. Awesome. Here's a bowl of ice cream. And if they only eat 2 bites, okay, I am not going to force you to eat more. Unfortunately, I've seen families try and do that, and it's hard to watch, but again, that's part of why I'm there, is to educate. And so I've had, a daughter bring in a meal. I think it was chicken and noodles and some vegetables and some like a gravy kind of thing. And she said, "Mom, I remember when you taught me how to make this," and we would stand side by side, and we'd add a little bit more of something, and then we'd taste it and see if that was just right. "And I know this is one of your very favorite meals to eat, and I made it yesterday for you, and I brought it in. Won't you please have some?" What is the mom going to say? She is, of course, going to say, "Of course, help me eat some bites." And then the daughter kept feeding her, and the mom was having trouble, chewing it and swallowing it. She'd need several little sips of water in order to have it go down because her mouth was dry. But she kept eating, and then the daughter would say, "Oh, Mom, just one more bite. It's almost done. Just one more bite, just one more bite." And despite my education of her and my trying to gently say, excuse me, I think your mom's had enough, she kept trying. Excuse me 1 second.
Yeah. I didn't think she meant anything by it, but of course it wasn't
Absolutely.
helping.
She was absolutely doing it from a place of love,
Yeah.
but without understanding that it was hurting. So, and if you think about how our society views food, like if you get together for a football game or a baptism or a Friday night, you have food there. That's our
Yeah.
society revolves around food. And so it's very natural, and it's very hard for people to understand, like I'm not going to go more than 4 hours without eating something. And yet here is a mom in the dying process who has gone 4 days without eating anything. And families have a really hard time wrapping their head around, well, how on earth is she still alive if she hasn't eaten
Yeah.
in 4 days? It's because her body doesn't need it. She's not expending calories. And
She's
so,
she's at a different stage, I guess, right? It's not like a
yep,
normal stage
exactly. Well, it is
of
normal.
living. Well,
It
of
is,
living, a normal stage of living. It's like
right.
she's already transitioned to that next,
Yep,
whatever
she is definitely,
that is.
yes, she is definitely transitioning, and her body is changing. She is still technically living. She is, but she is in that kind of gray area of, I'm up walking around living my life and I'm not dead yet. It's that in between stage that, we don't know. Some people will eat 20 minutes before they die.
Oh,
Some
really?
people, yep, some people won't have anything to eat for 2 weeks and be in that dying process. Every body is going to do it differently. So even though we
Yeah.
have a lot of things that are going to be similar that we can, depend on, it's kind of like a buffet. You might have a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of this, but some other people might have this, this, and this, and they might have it in a different order, in different quantities, and at different times. It's like birth. Every birth is different, and every death is different.
Yeah, my dad didn't want anything to drink or eat that day. So it was like his body knew.
Yep. And we just have to listen. We just have to respect what they're telling us, whether it's verbally or, I've watched people pull out feeding tubes.
Yeah.
They don't want it. They don't want that.
Yeah, that's hard for the family to sit and watch because it makes it look more like this is actually going to happen. I think that's the hard part.
I think it is too. But if we can just, like, you've said, just be in the moment. If you can just be present and focus on different things, focus on keeping them comfortable.
Yeah.
Focus on telling stories, focus on singing, focus on reading a book or a Bible, whatever is for you guys. Be in that moment, because you're not going to get that back again.
Yeah. I had, I think I had a guest on that used to go around singing to them. So whatever their favorite music, or if they can still speak, or whatever it might be. But saying that, I think the liquid part would probably be hard to handle, not seeing them drink, because I know we all want to drink.
Like we're drinking right now,
Yeah.
right? You and I have a beverage right now because, our mouth gets dried out. And so we want to put something in it so it's more comfortable.
Yeah.
And so when someone is at end of life, again, it's different because their cells in their body don't necessarily need it, but their mouth might. And so we'll use a little sponge, it's called a toothette, and get it wet and squeeze out the excess water. And we'll do oral cares so that their mouth is comfortable. And we have little concoctions. We can put together a couple different formulas. Sometimes we'll put a little mouthwash in it. Sometimes we'll put a little olive oil with the mouthwash so it really does coat. And so we do that all the time. We do that very, very frequently throughout every day so that their mouth is clean and comfortable.
That must feel
but
good.
Again, yeah, right, exactly. So it's comfortable, and but trying to do, for example, IV fluids. If someone is in the hospital, why aren't you giving them IV fluids? Well, because I don't want a needle stuck in me, first of all, at end of life. And second of all, if your body's not able to process that fluid, your kidneys aren't working as well anymore, right? That's part of the process. That's one of the organs that we have that's going to slowly start changing and stop working. And so it can't process the liquid that is going into your body, so now it can't get out. And so we're just adding all that fluid, and it does what we call third spacing, because it can't get filtered through your kidneys and you can't pee it out. So it's going to go outside of your arteries and veins into the areas around your cells. And you're going to get puffy feet and legs, puffy arms. And I don't know if anyone has ever experienced that edema. You eat a whole bag of chips and don't drink any water, you get puffy, right? Imagine that 4 or 5 times bigger. And it's really uncomfortable. So, and it can also start backing up into your lungs. And, that's uncomfortable. Nothing should be in your lungs except air. So when you start getting fluid in there, that's really uncomfortable too.
Yeah. So I guess people have to realize that specific part. What about family feuds in around the hospice?
I think that's the hardest thing of all as a nurse to watch, because it breaks our hearts.
Yeah.
We know that families, we want families to love each other and be there for the person that is dying. And I'm not too Pollyanna to know that not all families have had that for however long that has been. I know that. As a mom, I have 2 boys, and if I know, or I find out, or I die, and I'm going to come back and haunt them if they are fighting over something that we have talked about, because they're an extension of my heart. And that's, to know that they would be fighting I'm going to punch them in the throat. Don't do that. So that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about having everybody know what everybody's wishes are.
Yes.
Another reason we started Sips and Wishes, right, is to have these conversations around your kitchen table with everybody who can be there, so
Yeah.
that everybody can hear what I want, what you want, what mom and dad want, what my sisters want, everybody. And that it's, is it going to solve all the problems? Of course not. But if you can all hear at the same time what mom wants and what she doesn't want, then when it comes time, it's so much easier. Everybody can, everybody's emotional, right? Yes. And we will forget conversations. But if someone can say, remember when we were sitting around the kitchen table talking about this and mom said she didn't want a feeding tube, we need to honor that.
Yeah.
And then hopefully people are, you can get grounded back into that conversation and that reality. Because when we're emotional, that part of our brain takes over. And I've seen it. I've seen people fight literally over, one person's on one side of the bed and another person's on the other side of the bed, and they fight over the parent.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, if I could, I would raise up out of that bed and conk them both on the head and say, knock it off. This is not how I raised you. And I want you to love each other and don't fight about this stuff.
Yeah.
So have the conversation ahead of time and just be gentle and remind each other. One other thing I would add to this is if you have 9 children, please don't make all of them your power of attorney equally, because your nurses are not going to like that. It's so hard when you can't even get 2 people to agree where we're going to go to dinner, and you're going to put both of them in charge of making decisions that are in a very emotional time. Please don't do that. Pick one person, pick a backup, and then have the conversation with them so that they know what you want. Because trying to get 9 people to agree is not going to happen. And I know you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and you think that it has to be your firstborn or your spouse. It doesn't. If you want to pick someone else, then you have to just document it, and please tell them. Again, like if you want a nurse there to help facilitate that conversation, I'm happy to help with that. But having all 9 children is a recipe for disaster.
It is. And have you seen when the family is like 2 parts, from divorce and new marriages and mixtures, that must add more to the flame too. Because I do celebrity videos every other weekend, and it's very interesting. The last one on Saturday was Bob Hope. And again, the same scenario. He had piles and piles of assets and money, and the families are going to now have to come together and discuss how to work around what he's left. But they didn't talk about it beforehand. So everyone has their opinion, and which one is right. So the family conversations are by far the easiest. It might not feel comfortable at the time, but if everybody joins in, I've always thought I should make a game like Monopoly, where you go around the board and then you have to start talking about what things you want, and somehow make that more of a game so that people know that it's important to do it.
I think that's a fantastic idea. I love that. Yes. And if that's how it gets you guys to talk about it, absolutely. I mean, every family's different, right? Some people are gonna be like, I don't want to play a game. But for those families that like game night, absolutely. That's a great idea. I love that. You definitely need to do that. There are a lot of things out there. There are a lot of tools out there that can help facilitate conversations. And yeah, some people are very private, and I think it's a little bit generational when it
Yes.
comes to some of especially the finances. But boy, and I'm a nurse, I'm not a lawyer, but I am going to tell you that if you have anything that you own that is going to not be used up before you die, have an estate plan, meet with a lawyer, and they
Yes.
are worth their weight in gold, and it is a gift to whoever you are leaving behind,
To
because it
have
is a
that organized.
fiasco. Yep, it is a fiasco, and you can so much money gets burned up also in
Fighting.
and well, but not even just that, but if you have automatic bill pay, but you haven't named someone to come in and take over that, there might be a 6 months worth of automatic bill pay that's coming out of your estate because you didn't have the right pieces in place to stop that.
Yeah.
And by the time you go through the court system, yeah, you've burned up 6 months. And, I don't want to give 6 months more worth of my money to, whoever I have automatic, the gas company or my car payments or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
it's a
I
gift.
think it is truly a gift. And it's truly a gift when they have that part organized.
Yep.
Because I think back in the day, probably I'm going back to Walton's day, I used to talk about how Little House on the Prairie, and they would take their important documents and they roll them up in brown paper and shove them in the rafters, even in the attic or in the basement, and the family knew that's where the important documents were. But now it's complicated. Now we have digital assets. Now we have different banks. Now we have different investment companies. There's so much unclaimed money that families have no idea that the person that just passed even has or has had. And it just complicates, and it's so hard to deal with after. I know some of my clients have had 4, 5, 6 years dealing with financial stuff. And it's such a waste of time and money. And I think I learned a lot from my parents when my dad passed away last year, because it doesn't matter how much money you have. What matters is that you have it organized. And that age group was so quiet and secret about how much money they have, or how much assets they have, or where their investments are. I mean, they don't want to share any of that information. And whatever reason, I don't know, it's definitely generational. And I'm sure listeners out there know a parent that's like that. But I'll tell you, what they don't understand is that when they're really, really sick or dying, it's not theirs anymore anyways. Someone has to look after it. Someone is supposed to turn into an angel and know exactly what everything was. And it's just not going to happen. Running around different banks wondering if your dad has a bank account there, or running around for an investment company. Well, he had this, so where did that come? It's like being a forensic in your own movie, trying to figure out what the heck that your family had. And I think what my mom didn't understand was that, yes, it's her money, but it's not really, because now she's incapable of doing anything on her own. So she has to rely on us to do it for her. So why not share that? Why not share if it doesn't say, well, I have $1 million in my bank account, why not share where it is? Why not share where you can find it, so that at least you have an idea when the time does come? Because it's so hard to find all this stuff.
Yeah, I do think that there's some stigma that comes with it because, again, blaming some of the media for, making it look like every child is bloodthirsty for that bank account so they can spend it on a Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Most people aren't going to be like that. And I think people don't understand too that financial power of attorney and medical power of attorney are different, and they come into play at different times.
That's right.
Right. Just because you name me as your medical power of attorney doesn't mean it starts right now. You're still able to make all your own decisions. So no, it doesn't start until you're incapable of that. So educating people on what the different options are, what the different reasons are for having all of these different things set up ahead of time. And, when a little old man says to me, well, I don't care, I'm going to be dead, it doesn't matter. I'm like,
Yeah.
Yes, but you're making this so much harder on your kids. Don't you like them?
Yeah.
Like if you like your kids, please don't do this to them, right? Set these things up ahead of time, and
And if you don't like your kids, then here's an idea. Don't do anything.
Right. Exactly. Sure. I mean, I guess we're going to know if our parents liked us or not based on if they did things ahead of time or not for us, right? Yeah, it's I get that you're private and you don't have to tell us like how much is in there. That's not why we're doing this. Or the only time it really does come into play on the nitty-gritty details is with the medical stuff. Like, I need to know if you want a permanent feeding tube or if you want a temporary feeding tube. If we can talk about these things, and you're not able to voice that anymore, like, oh my gosh, that's, you're going to have a good death. Like, it's like we don't know how to have a good death in this country anymore because there are so many medical interventions that just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Yeah.
Like, how much money is spent on end of life care when someone can just have a way more comfortable death if you just stop mucking around in it, So it's a point of passion and frustration for me, I can tell you that.
I bet. And I have a friend it was very interesting. He was dying of cancer, her husband, and they had a funeral for him, a party with him still there, lying in the bed in the room with everybody, and so he could like enjoy this party. I thought that was very different and quirky, I guess. But whatever works. I don't care how they make it work. It's just make it work.
Yeah, it's a different way to process your grief, right? Because you can say the things that you'd like to say at a funeral, but then the person gets to hear it. How fantastic is that? That what I wish our culture would stop doing, though, is trying to leapfrog over the grief and mourning that happen naturally at a funeral, because we're so quick to rush back into happiness and joyfulness and celebrations. Like, no, I need to be sad.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Sad is just as valid and important of a feeling as joy. And when you try to, just jump right over that, like, that doesn't feel good. Because then I feel shameful that I'm still feeling sadness when it's natural, it's normal,
to
grief.
Do that.
Yeah, grief is the price of love. It's just, I heard somebody the other day say that grief is just love that doesn't know where to go anymore. And I loved that. Like, I was able to share my love with you, and now you're not physically here anymore. And so I don't know where to put that love. And it comes out in grief. And I really loved that.
That's perfect, actually.
Yeah, I loved that.
So on a side note, make sure Amy has her information down below in the description box. If you just click the More button, you'll have a bunch of stuff that will come up, and it will share her contact information if anybody wants to ask her any questions after. Or if you put a comment down below, I can pass it over to Amy as well. But, and please like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you would like to share this with your other family members and friends that are going through this or will be going through this. It's a great time to start this talk. And that's all what Amy and I are here for, is just to get you guys talking. Start the conversations, and then you'll be amazed at where it could go from there. I think in a lot of families, if you can have the family conversations before something occurs, because it seems like when something does happen, when that person does pass, some family members turn like that. Like, who are you? Like, where did you come from? Like, I don't get that part. Is that the shock and the... I just don't even understand how you can't be an adult in a conversation about something before, but after it happens, they turn into this Heckle and Jekyll. I'm not sure where that comes from.
It's just they don't know how to process the grief. They haven't been given that opportunity to do it in a healthy way, or that in that safe space. That's my opinion.
Yeah, possibly. But I'm sure you see it happen with families, either telling them to get out of the room or to go home, or, you know, I'm sure you've seen all sorts of things.
Yeah. And, you know, a lot of hospice houses or places, there will be a room that I can take someone to and sit down with them and, you know, let them just unload their feelings and thoughts and in a safe place, but not over the bed of the dying person, because that's not helpful. So
no,
let's talk about it let's talk about it in a safe place. I'll let you say anything you need to.
Yeah, that's lovely. But and again, that's not always the perfect scenario, is it?
Yeah,
You could be in a hospital. You're not going to get that situation.
No, but most places are going to have some place to tuck into so that you can have a conversation. Yeah, and just de-escalate.
Yeah. What does have you ever had any families? Have you ever noticed any families saying, "Well, Mom, where's your bank accounts? Like, where is everything?"
No, thankfully, I've not. I'm going to knock on wood that never happens. No, I haven't ever experienced that. Thankfully, I'm sure it's happened. I just have not ever seen that.
I've gotten a phone call from a client once where her mom was passing, and she said, "I've asked, she can still talk, and I'm asking, you know, where her stuff is, and she's not telling me." She says, "It doesn't matter." But it does matter.
Well, it
says,
does,
"What do
but
I say?"
yeah, yeah. I mean, in that moment, I can see where the mom is saying, "No, it doesn't matter right now. Just be with me in this moment." You know, you'd like to rewind about a year and a half and say, "Okay, let's get all this stuff figured out so that
That's right.
when the time comes, then we can just be in the moment," you know, instead of screaming at your mom, who is now unresponsive, and hope she can tell you where stuff is, because that's probably not going to happen.
No, it probably won't happen, because either she won't remember, or she doesn't want to remember, or she really can't remember.
Yeah.
Because the poor lady's passing. I mean, give her a break. It's not really stuff we talk about at that time. And I think that's where the movies and all of this kind of get in the play of, what do people do? Because they really don't know. We're not educated in all of this.
Yeah.
So between the medical portion and the realistic living document portion, it's a big mess.
Yeah, it is. And it doesn't have to be. So yeah, like we've said this whole time, you know, talk about things ahead of time, get things figured out, get things planned, so that when the time comes, you have a little bit of knowledge that the the finances and things are taken care of. You don't have to worry about it, but also you know what to expect, what you're going to see, what you're going to hear, what you're going to smell, what things are going to look like. And I think that will just make it better for you, and it makes it better for your loved one. So that, yeah, you're not standing over them, screaming at them to wake up when they're at the unresponsive stage.
Exactly. Yeah. I believe that too.
Oh, you got the phone ringing.
Yeah.
Oh, the joys of working from home.
There we go. Red Cross is calling. How funny is that?
Yeah, they come in and clean up the mess afterwards, right?
Yeah. Well, I found that I was shocked in Canada about how good the counseling is after someone in your family passes.
Nice.
I did not know that we had some sort of system where they would contact you to see if you needed anything, if you needed any counseling.
Is that
Even
for someone who wasn't even on hospice? Like,
yes,
because here, if someone has been on hospice, most of the companies have bereavement plan for 13 months after the death.
that's right.
But you're saying it's for everyone,
Yes,
even if they weren't on hospice. That's great.
yes. I think it is good because then they can choose yes or no. It's up to them, right?
Yeah, that's
Maybe
fantastic.
they just want to talk about it for 1 or 2 sessions or something, whatever
Yeah.
it might be. But I was very happy to see that. What I didn't realize is that when my dad passed away in the living room, that the coroner doesn't come and pick him up and bring him to the hospital or to the coroner. Again, not having personally experienced it outside of this, I thought it was like in the movies where they just come and pick up the body and bring it, and then you have to tell them where you want it sent to after. But apparently, we don't do that. What we do is we have to phone a funeral home who is still open, or you've had a plan where you've had a funeral home already completed the process of what it is that you want, your funeral package. At that time, you only have to contact them and they will come and pick up the body. But if you have no plan, then it's up to the family to find somewhere to pick up the body. Otherwise, I don't know what would happen if you don't do anything. It would just stay there. I really don't know. I just thought it was a process where they came and took the body and brought it back.
Wouldn't that be nice if the things that you needed were just automatic? Yeah. In Nebraska, in the town I live in specifically, when someone is on hospice, the hospice agency will gather information from the patient and or the family about what funeral home they have chosen. And then once the person dies, then the hospice agency does a cascade of events. And one of the parts of that is the coroner does come out. In our county, that's a law that someone from the coroner's, it's our sheriff's office, someone from the sheriff's office comes, and even if it's obviously a expected death because they're on hospice, right?
Yeah.
They come and just gather information for the death certificates, and they view the body just to make sure that, there's not any obvious signs of trauma or anything. And then that's all that the coroner does. And then once the family is ready, then the agency calls the funeral home, and no matter what time of day it is, they or whoever is on call, if it's overnight, will come in and take the body to the funeral home. And this can be in a private residence, or it can be in a hospice house like where I work, or it can be in the hospital. I'm not sure, I guess, what the hospital protocol is, but I imagine it's fairly similar if they were on hospice. But yeah, that's the process for someone who has been on hospice. If they're not on hospice and someone has died at home, I imagine it's going to be a little bit more like what you've described. You might even have to call. I don't know if someone would call, somebody might panic and just call 911. If that's the case in our town, if 911 is called and they have to come out to your home, they're going to probably try and do resuscitation efforts.
Yeah.
Even if it's been hours and hours and the body is very obviously dead, they might still have to do that, which can be pretty traumatic for whoever is still in the home, family, loved ones, to witness that. And then
Again, they don't think of that part.
Right, because what you see is on the TV is very different.
Yeah,
and then
especially
they might
if
need
you
to.
have a no, do not resuscitate.
Right.
So
Yep. But having
so
that piece of paper to show them is good, but then don't call 911 because that's what their protocol is. They have to. And so then you just maybe call the non-emergency number of the coroner and they would just be able to come out and declare death. And then, the family would have to call some sort of funeral home to, and then making those decisions, snap,
yeah, that's
at
right.
2 a.m. doesn't sound very appealing to me. So,
Well, in emotion too, in a stressed out, you're like in your freeze mode.
Yeah.
When something's happened that quickly.
Yep, exactly.
So we can't tell people enough to have their crap together is what you're saying.
Yeah. So, as we sit here and laugh about it, but it's true. Like, it's just going to make everything so much easier if you've talked about it with your people. And, the more you can get it down on paper, the better. It's just going to make it easier for everybody. I know it's not going to matter to you because you're dead. Okay.
Yeah.
But you like these people, you have them in your life. So make it easier for them. Have some sort of plan in place.
Exactly. Don't make it so miserable that they're gonna hate you by the time they're finished.
Yeah, they're gonna shake their fist at you and and say some curse words maybe.
And I think celebrities are kind of in the same boat because they get busy. And even though you think that they would have everything at their fingertips, they just also don't do it.
Yeah.
So we're all the same. It's just a matter of doing it or not doing it. So why not have fun doing it if we have to do it? So
exactly. Have a drink.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're right. I mean, they're celebrities are people too. They put on their pants 1 foot at a time. They're busy, but oh my God, so am I. I'm busy. I'm, paid as well, but we are all busy, and you have to just be deliberate about getting it done. You have to put it on. For me, if it's on my calendar, I'm way more likely to do it. Yeah. Whether it's working out or going to lunch with a friend, getting coffee, work related things, if it's on my calendar, I'm more likely to do it. It's done. If you're Erin is a Post-it note person. She's got Post-it notes everywhere in her house. If it's on a Post-it note, she's more likely to do it. And, if you're a list maker, however you operate, do that. But you have to just be deliberate, take the time to do it. Is it more fun to go eat cake? Of course. But I guarantee this is a gift to the people around you, and they are going to thank you for this.
Well, and you can eat cake while you're doing it. So what the heck?
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely.
So why
There's
not?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that being said, I think too, I think where a lot of people will do it, it's just that they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
We kind of know, well, we need a will. That's like the first thing. And we need a power of attorney. That's like the second thing. And then otherwise, nobody knows what they need because they haven't been through that. So that's where your backup plan helps to guide you through what sections you need to fill in. And if you do it, I always say to people, if you do 1 or 2 sections the whole time, it's better than not doing anything. It's more than what you would have done if you didn't have it. So there's 6 sections, and even part of it is fun. It's looking to see what you would like to do for a legacy. And we have webinars on legacy building and what you'd like to do. And people talk about ideas, and we share things that, hey, I could do that, or, because we didn't think of doing that, or because my other thing too is not even just having it ready for the family to be prepared when something does happen, but it's also, will they remember you? Will they know who you were, what you did, what you smelled like, what you felt like? All of these things that the next generation didn't know who you were. What did you leave for them? And it doesn't mean that you had to be a singer and leave a song or something. It just means that you could leave something that you do in your life that you're really good at. It could be your handwriting. It could be a scarf that you had your perfume on. It could be all sorts of things that you put into this box. But that's just another part that I make fun with getting prepared and making those moments through your life memorable. Because then people can open up the box at that time and say, oh, remember when we did this? Oh, remember, oh yeah, I remember she liked those recipes, and all of that kind of stuff. Those are all so heartfelt after. So yeah, I talk about that too. But we could talk about this all afternoon. I know we could, Amy, but what final messages would you like to give the listeners?
I would say, can I have 2?
Sure.
Okay. The first one is, I think, just to reiterate what you just said, is if you don't know where to start, contact me, because Sips and Wishes can help when you don't know where to start. We're nurses, we're trusted, we have evidence-based practice that we talk about. It's not trying to sway you to do something or not do something. It's just, and it's fun. Yeah, like you said, you can eat cake and drink whatever you want as we're doing the education, and then you get a plan in place. The second thing is related to my hospice nursing hat, is that I hear over and over and over again 2 things. One is, I wish I had started hospice sooner, and I didn't know when to start hospice. So hospice in the United States is 6 months. Like, you get 6 months to be on hospice, and we don't have crystal balls, but we can guesstimate. But when someone is only able to take advantage of hospice for a couple of days, that's hard, because there's so many advantages to being on hospice. You get supplies, you get your meds paid for, you get us loving on you and letting your family just be family instead of your caregivers. You get so much benefit out of it. And research shows that you live longer if you're on hospice than if you're not. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, because people think, oh, you go on hospice and you kill them with your morphine, and that's just absolutely not true. I'm not going to risk my license to give somebody too much morphine. It's just not going to happen. But getting on hospice, you just get so many benefits. And so if you think that someone is close to needing hospice, or even if they're not, even if you think, well, they're going to still be around for a year or 2, get evaluated, because just getting that evaluation starts the relationship with a hospice agency. And yeah, you might not be ready yet, either emotionally or physically. They might say, you don't qualify yet. You've started that process. And so then when you get reevaluated, maybe now you're ready, and you've already got that relationship established, and then you get all the benefits. So if you think
later.
Exactly. Yep. So those are my two closing thoughts is if you don't know where to start, contact me. And if you think you want hospice, get evaluated right now because it's an amazing service that in most places is free. So
And
why not?
I've heard too, you can have hospice at home.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's wherever you call home,
Yeah.
whether you're in a facility or you're at home. Yeah.
Because that's
now
a
there
lot
are,
of people thinking that they can't stay home and they really want to.
yeah.
So
Yeah. And if you want to stay at home, what you do need to know about hospice is they're not going to be a 24-hour a day providing you care. It's 1 or 2 hours a day per week for nursing and or a bath aide or chaplain or music therapy or whatever. It's not round the clock care
yeah,
unless you're in a hospice house or facility inpatient unit. But the hospice agency that is part of your benefit as a United States resident, that's paid for. So yeah, you can stay at home.
that's crazy. They pay for you dying, but they don't pay for anything else.
Or don't even get me started on how messed up our healthcare system is here. Please, please, please don't get me started. Because if I could have 30 days to fix our system, man, I could get a lot of stuff done.
I'm sure a lot of people listening right now could say the same thing.
Yep.
Well, it's not that great here either. So, it's people think it is, but it's not. It's we have now changed our medical system to I want to call it I can't think of the word. It's like after the fact kind of. Like there's some people that don't even have a doctor. So they're not
Wow.
getting their annual checkups done. And I think it's really important to do those because that's not letting something get to a certain stage where it's causing more medical issues.
Yep.
Right, for our system as well as them. But yeah, so it's changing quickly. It's like an after the effect medical system.
Yeah. That's too bad.
Instead
Instead
of
of preventive.
yeah.
Yeah. Bummer.
So yeah, it is. So things change in every country. We just have to be aware of what's going on. But thank you, Amy, for coming on our show today. It was awesome, and I'm sure I've learned something, so others will too. And thank you, listeners, for coming out to our show today and listening more and learning more about the end of life and what you can do to help guide you in your predicament that you might be experiencing or will experience. And why not have a plan and understand it better and have fun doing it? That's what Amy and I basically said, is have fun doing it and be present when it does happen. Be there, and because you can't get that time back. So thank you, listeners. Thank you so much. Thank you, Amy, for coming on our show. I've really appreciated it, and hopefully we've helped one person with what we can say and help them with, because that's what my goal is in every show. So thank you, Amy, and thank you, listeners. Stay tuned for next week's show, and as well as stay safe and be kind. Till next week. Bye.